Hello, this is your GenX Big Sister signing in today. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Last night, I did another virtual coffee chat with a group of Gen X women. There were about 10 of us there. It was fantastic. And it was interesting, a topic that came up around people pleasing. And I thought it would be worth exploring it a little bit. And it's something that I've heard used a lot by women, not just Gen X women, but a lot of Gen X women think that it has sort of hit us differently, maybe. I don't know. So first, I was wondering, what is people pleasing? What do people mean when they say that? And so I used AI to find out, and AI told me that people pleasing looks like prioritizing other people's comfort, needs, or approval over your own, saying yes when you want to say no, avoiding conflict at almost any cost, over-explaining, apologizing excessively, or softening your truth, tying your own sense of worth to being helpful, agreeable, or easy, and feeling responsible for other people's emotions. At its core, people pleasing is less about generosity and more about fear. Fear of disappointing, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as difficult, selfish, or too much. And I find that definition intriguing because I've never considered myself a people pleaser. I've heard people say that that's something that they struggle with, and I've never thought that that was me. What I do struggle with, though, is this feeling or this story that I tell myself that I'm not very likable, this whole likability factor. And as I've dug into this whole people pleasing concept, it's made me aware of a few things where that is concerned. So last night, the conversation came up in the context of, why do Gen X women struggle with people pleasing so much? And by comparison, younger generations, these young women seem to have a better handle on it, have a better handle on not necessarily putting everybody and anything else first before their own needs. And one person commented that it could have something to do with the role models that we had, that Gen X role models, the Winona Ryders, like, who were our role models back in the 80s and 90s? And the group was saying that they were nice girls, Molly Ringwald, they were the girls that were doing what they were supposed to do, and they were likable, and they cared about everybody else. They were humble, all those things. And we sort of embodied that. And by today's standards, with the whole sort of Kardashian element of role models, where those things are not a factor. You're not sacrificing yourself for everybody else. So there was a little bit of thought around that. So I'm curious what you think. Do you think that it's generationally prevalent in certain generations? I do think that we were trained to put others first from a very early age, and we were trained to do what was expected of us. We had a lot of responsibility put on us at a very young age. Most of us were babysitting our siblings while we were still babies ourselves. And we really took on that responsibility, and we saw that as like approval. Approval equaled safety to us. Approval equaled attention to us. So those were skills and values that were priorities for us as we were growing up. I think it's important to know that people pleasing is not being kind to people. It's just putting them first at our own detriment, sacrificing ourselves. So, the whole oxygen mask, somebody mentioned the oxygen mask metaphor last night, about how they haven't put on the oxygen mask in decades. They've been giving it to everybody else, and they should have ran out of air a long time ago. In fact, they did run out of air a long time ago. So that whole concept of now that Gen X women are in midlife and beyond, getting perimenopause, menopause, that whole season of life, new transitions in life, they're tired from the people pleasing. They're exhausted by the people pleasing. And they're sort of waking up and trying to shed that or recognizing that they're doing it. But it's a hard thing to get rid of. It was a survival skill for us, and it worked for many, many years until it didn't anymore. So it's like we're having a wake-up call at this particular, moment in our life. And I was thinking about, so before I talk about what I saw about, well, how do you correct people pleasing and why would you want to correct people pleasing? I want to talk about my own connection to it. Even though I don't identify as a people pleaser. And the reason why I don't is because I have no problem saying no when it's beyond a boundary of mine or something that I don't want to do. So I have no issue with that. And I have no issue or guilt with prioritizing myself when I need to. Maybe that comes from being a solo woman for the bulk of my adult life. That could have something to do with it. But I don't have any guilt around that. I do believe that in order to be the best friend, sister, daughter, partner, girlfriend, whatever, I have to take care of myself first in order to be able to fill those roles to the best of my ability. So I haven't considered myself a people pleaser. I do avoid conflict as much as I can, but not at all cost. I will face it when I ultimately have to, but I'm not seeking it. I'm not going after it on a regular basis. But the thing that was sort of an aha is the whole connection to likability, because one of the things that came up, as I was listening to these other women speak, and then as I looked online to see like what the definitions were, the fact that we were trained from a young age, we were trained to be desirable and likable, and that was connected to people pleasing. A woman is desirable and likable if she knows how to nurture and care and prioritize and be selfless and, suck it up and not complain and not whine and not, just not talk about pain, whether it's physical or emotional, just sort of, you know, just sucking it up, putting our big girl panties on, just dealing with it, and usually dealing with it privately. All of those messages and all of those things were sort of wrapped in together. So I can see why likability, I've had a problem with that for myself, or I've had a negative message on it in myself, is because I know I'm not a people pleaser, or I don't identify as a people pleaser. Therefore, I must be unlikable. So even by trying to resist the programming and resist the messaging, I still ended up taking it on, and it still ended up impacting my life and how I see myself and how I've conducted myself to this day. I mean, it's something that I struggle with. I mean, I absolutely have a clearer vision now, and that's what's happening to a lot of us women. Midlife, we're waking up, we're seeing things more clearly. I do think the hormone changes have a lot to do with that. The decrease in estrogen. We're just finally ready to be in touch with our own needs, desires, wants, etc. Why would we want to stop being a people pleaser? Because we're we're not being truly authentic to ourselves. That was another word that we threw around yesterday in our coffee chat and decided, we think the word authentic is overused, but we weren't able to come up with a solid enough replacement. But as long as we're sort of wearing that cloak of people pleasing, we're not fully stepping into who we are and meeting the world with who we are. We're keeping this front on. So that's one of the many reasons we want to stop being people pleasers, and so that we can really understand what it is that we truly want in our hearts. As we build out this next season, we've got 30-ish years plus, God willing, in our lives. How do we want that to play out? So the work in shedding yourself of people pleasing, it's not becoming harsh, it's not becoming neglectful, it's not becoming mean, it's not about those things. It's about staying connected to yourself and having clarity with that. That may require getting quiet and getting still and really figuring out what is it that you want. Are you doing this thing because you want, or because somebody else or something else has convinced you it's something that you want? So we have to be connected to ourselves. We have to learn to be comfortable with discomfort, that it might not be comfortable to say no for a while. It might not be comfortable to enforce our own boundaries. We have to learn to let other people experience the emotions and the thoughts that they have and not feel responsibility for them, not feeling that we have to manage them. I do think the younger generation has a much better grasp on that. And I've been on the other end of that sometimes. And just choosing alignment over approval. Being true to ourselves and being in alignment with what we want and what our values are, that is more important than the approval of others. Curious to hear your thoughts. Are you a people pleaser? Does this resonate with you? And have you tried to shed that? And if you have any tips on that, leave that as well. This is your GenX sister, your GenX Big Sister, getting ready to sign out but before I do that, please like and subscribe to this channel. I am definitely trying to connect with Gen X women across the internet. So the more you can help me with that, the more I just really, really appreciate it. This is your GenX Big Sister signing off.